Welcome back everybody to the channel. It's me, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, or the Energicano. Either way how you say it, it's all good here. And we're back again for another video as we conclude our journey through Lars von Trier's Europe trilogy on Blu-ray from the Criterion collection. As we look at the final film in the trilogy set, none other than his 1991 film, Europa. We have been looking at this film set for a while now, and we're going to go ahead and conclude it. We started off with, of course, The Element of Crime, and then we moved on to his second film in this set, Epidemic, and today we're going to conclude it all with Europa. But of course, I hope you all have been enjoying this series, and I hope you all have been enjoying the discussions on them. And of course, if you enjoy content about physical media and about film, then this is the channel for you. Click that subscribe button so you don't miss a single piece of content that drops on the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss a single piece of content that drops on the channel. And of course, leave a like on the video because that helps out a lot too. If you want to lend an extra helping hand, I do have a Patreon set up over at patreon.com/TheNerdChicano, so you can get early access to videos just like the one you're watching right now, along with other goodies like video essays that are provided for different tiers. Of course, it is not mandatory, but it is appreciated. Either way how it goes, I enjoy that you all watch these videos, and I just am very appreciative of your support, whether it is monetary or just by watching these videos. So enough of that, let's go ahead and talk about Europa. So let me go ahead and read from the back here, and then we'll go ahead and look at the packaging and go on from there. You will now listen to my voice. On the count of 10, you will be in Europa. Max von Sydow's ominous, hypnotic introduction inaugurates the entrancing final installment of Lars von Trier's Europe trilogy. An idealistic American, John Mark Barr, travels to post-war Germany to take a job as a sleeping car conductor for the Zentropa Railways, and finds himself plunged into a murky, Kafkaesque world of intrigue and betrayal where the shadow of Nazism hovers menacingly over everything. With its ravishing cinematography in black and white color, and at times a stunning mix of both, dreamlike use of rear projections and lush fusion of melodrama and noir conventions, Europa is a sublimely stylized cinematic figure. Included in this Blu-ray director-approved special edition is a 4K digital restoration approved by director Lars von Trier with uncompressed stereo soundtrack, audio commentaries featuring von Trier, producer Peter Albeek Jensen, and actors John Mark Barr and Udo Kier. Making of documentary for 1991. Documentary for 1991 featuring an interview with von Trier and footage from the set, as well with the film's Cannes premiere and press conference. Interview from 2005 with von Trier about the Europe trilogy. Programs featuring interviews with film scholar Peter Schepler and many of von Trier's collaborators. Trailer, English subtitle translation, and English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. This is the front of the packaging. This is the back. And then you just open it up and you have your Blu-ray disc right there. But that's pretty much for the packaging, and of course this is the final one, and it is the last of this Europe trilogy from Lars von Trier on Blu-ray from the Criterion collection. Now, if you all have been following along with the journey on the last two films, you know that I was not a fan of The Element of Crime or Epidemic. Though I found The Element of Crime to be really stylistically rich, and I found that to be the best part of the film. Whereas Epidemic, I found it to be hollow, I found it to be not that stylistically important as The Element of Crime, yet I was still gravitating towards the visual tones. Now, Europa is a film that I can somewhat get behind. I like this movie, but it does have a lot of the problems that The Element of Crime and Epidemic have. It is not the easiest film to follow. I think its pace is kind of all over the place. But I think that it has a really interesting thematic approach and showing the differences in Europe and what it's taken to change Europe, and especially the problems that Europe has had in between its time with Nazism and especially its fight with oppressive governments. I love the stylism in this film. with its use of black and white cinematography, color, and the way that it mixes it, provides such a beautiful cinematic language that is not easy to replicate. It's one that is been hard to replicate, and I think that Lars von Trier really does stick it in this film. But does he continue on with this style throughout his other films? Not really, and it's something that also kind of disappoints me about this, is that he never really continued on with this type of approach. But when it comes to the Europa, I enjoyed that aspect the most. And just like the element of crime, I think it is its strongest aspect when it comes to this film. I found some of the characters to be quite underdeveloped, and I found especially the film to be a bit redundant at times. It feels longer than it needs to be and longer than the time that is provided here. It clocks in at about 112 minutes. It's the longest one of all the films in here, but it feels way longer than that. It feels like a 2-hour film, yet my eyes were glued to the screen as I watched this beautifully visual style being projected on this film. And I love the use of rear projections. I think that films are so well done when they do rear projections like that. There was one film that I watched in an Italian cinema course that I can never remember its name, but I loved its use of rear projections and what it was trying to say thematically. And within Lars von Trier's Europa, I think that they do the rear projections justice, and it provides a really interesting look into the film's overarching message. But nonetheless, I thought it was just okay. I like it, but it's nothing that I am super shocked by. It's nothing that I'm really surprised by or anything that I'm blown away. This is kind of a disappointing set, to be honest, and that's saying a lot for the Criterion Collection, because I love all of their work. But these are just not the strongest films from Lars von Trier. I'm glad I own this because I think they're great restorations, but overall, I was kind of left disappointed with at least the film parts and the story aspects to these 3 films. Now let's talk about the restoration. So this is a 4K digital restoration. I watched this on my 4K player on my 4K TV, and I have to say, my God, I am blown away by this restoration of Europa. As I said, I was not the biggest fan of this movie. I like it, but when it comes to this 4K digital restoration, I am blown away. This registers so well on my TV, which makes me wonder what this would look like on a native 4K disc. I know that Curzon is doing a 4K of Breaking the Waves, which I have yet to watch, but I have on my watch list and I have on my need to pick up list for the next sale. But I wonder what Europa would look like presented on a native 4K disc with Dolby Vision HDR, because this 4K digital restoration on this set looks fantastic. I love the black and white registration on this film. The color looks great. Its resolution looks really sharp. I think that when it comes to the grain, I think that they kept a good amount of it, and it really looks like a film that is from 1991. And overall, the contrast is really deep, and you can tell, and it really brings out a really good look of the movie. Whereas, you know, in these other ones like Epidemic, where I found this restoration to be fine, but it is coming from a 16mm film negative, whereas this one, it is a 35mm film negative, and it's doing such a great job at being able to bring out a really interesting picture restoration from this film negative. There's no scratches in the print. There's nothing that I would say is a major problem with its presentation visually, because it just looks so good. And this might actually be one of my favorite restorations in the collection, because it just looks that freaking good. Now this is a stereo, uncompressed stereo soundtrack, which I really liked as well. It's coming from my TV speakers, so y'all, it's not going to sound the best. It's probably not going to sound as great as coming in from like a speaker system. But from what I can hear, it sounds good. There is no scratching, there's no hissing. There's nothing that I would say is unbalanced when it comes to the aspect of balancing the score, the dialogue, and the special effects and sound effects. It sounds all really good, and nothing that I would say that to my ear sounds bad. I think that it has a really good visual restoration, a good audio restoration, and of course it is filled with so many special features. So if you want to watch all these documentaries, all these interviews, when it comes to Europa, you're going to have a lot to get through. And of course, the film is good. It's not his best work, but it is good. And because of that, I gotta say, I really liked Europa, and I would really like to watch it again just for the visual aspect. But when it comes to the set, I can't recommend it at the price that this is going for, full price. Would I recommend it when it comes to the half off price on a sale? Maybe if you're a big Lars von Trier fan like I am myself. But if you're not a von Trier fan, if you're not really looking into Danish cinema like that, and if you really don't want to look into his filmography, you can put this off. But for those die-hard Lars von Trier fans, for the sale price, this is worth it. Now, on Curzon's side of things, they are doing a big Lars von Trier box set that includes all of these restorations, but it is Region B locked, and it does include Breaking the Waves on Blu-ray, which is coming to 4K on Curzon's site as a solo disc. So I hopefully will try to get that release of Breaking the Waves, unless Criterion does a release of it in the United States. But for now, y'all, when it comes to Lars von Trier's Europe trilogy, I have to say this is one of my few disappointing sets in the Criterion collection and in my personal collection. Of course, if you want to keep up to date with me on all things social media, follow me at the Nerd Chicano on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd, Serialized, and on Twitch. I'm the same handle on all of them, so let's get to talking about some movies, y'all. Check out the Nerdcore by following us at thenerdcore.com. The Nerdcore on Twitch and YouTube, the same handle on both of them. We're doing a lot of cool stuff with our podcast, so please go and check us out and show us some support, y'all. And for now, we're going to take a little bit of a break from sets. I'm going to run another retrospective series, but before that, I'm going to look at another film before we look at the retrospective series. And when we get to there, I promise you all will be very happy to know that I'm going to be discussing one of my favorite directors of all time. But in the meantime, to my wonderful cinephiles and renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Catch you all in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.